Hey everyone, I have been invited here today to talk about onboarding. And we're going to talk about why we want to onboard and what that looks like, how we do it. So, first, onboarding is basically a system, which is a word that people shy away from. System sounds very monolithic, but it doesn't have to be that. A system is just a process that you use every time you have to do something. So, figuring out exactly what you want to do every time you bring on a new team member is really important. And that will become your system and it will change over time. And what I'm about to share with you about how I do this has evolved over the course of 8 years, 9 years. Oh my gosh, a while. And for a long time, I didn't have an onboarding system at all. I was kind of winging it. And I definitely noticed a difference once I decided I was going to figure out exactly what I was going to do and follow sort of a checklist every time. So first, why have a system? Why have a process? This is really just helping a new person become acclimated in bite-sized pieces. So you don't want to overwhelm them, and you want to be able to give someone a strong start because if they're seeing early successes, if they're getting confidence in what they're doing, if they're feeling a bit of momentum during that jumpstart period, they're much more likely to stick with it even when it gets tough. And the jumpstart period, 30, 60, 90, and 120 days. That whole period of time is specifically chosen because it's crucial. And if you have goals set along the way, mile markers to measure your success, little wins where you can get prizes and things like that, it really helps build confidence as you're learning. Because a lot of people start direct sales, they've never done it before anywhere else. So we are sort of guiding them through that process. And your job isn't to know everything. As a sponsor, your job really is just to help them figure out where to find answers, to understand the wealth of resources we have. Basically, it's sort of like orientation at a new job or at college. You're showing them where everything is and what kinds of things are there and kind of giving them a map so that they can start navigating with independence and confidence after the jumpstart period. So everything else I'm going to talk about is really how. I want you to understand that someone can join you the exact same day that you joined, and you are automatically a leader. Obviously, there are leaders who are new, and there are leaders who are seasoned. There are leaders who take on all the responsibilities of a leader, and leaders who maybe don't do that, but they're still leaders, whether they're doing a great job at it or not. So, part of like onboarding is that first thing you're going to do for your team member that is showing them you're their leader. And it's also something that practice helps. So even if you've never done it before, you're a great leader if you care about being a great leader. And if you use the resources you have, like your upline and the other trainings that are available, to try to pass along information as you learn it to your teammate. So you can join the same day as your teammate, go through onboarding together. You're just kind of guiding that process and making sure that you're sharing what you're learning with them. And you can make mistakes. If we are picking our teammates to onboard, you want to pick people you want to work with. So hopefully the people that you choose to join your team are going to give you grace as you are figuring out how to onboard them. And for some people this may be irrelevant. You maybe have onboarded lots of people, and some of this might be just a matter of picking and choosing things you might want to add to your existing onboarding process, but hopefully it's helpful for everyone. I have a checklist, and I'm not going to share it specifically in this group or with this training because it has a lot of specific resources that are only available to my team, like a drive where we save specific things that would be overwhelmed by having a lot of people contributing to it, a lot more people. It already has almost 300 people. But what I'm going to do is tell you all the things that are on that list. And I will be providing a couple of things that are on that list that you can duplicate. So you can check out the comments for some links. Okay, so my onboarding checklist. The very first thing is obviously day one, they just joined. So the first thing I do always is reach out and congratulate them. So they just made this choice. Hopefully you've been conversing beforehand, but sometimes people join without a single conversation about the opportunity. You're just like, oh, I have a new teammate. What do I do? Congratulate them and let them know what to expect next, which is they're going to get an email if they hadn't already from home office. They're going to get another email talking about Lemongrass Central. So definitely stress the importance of looking for that email and making sure they sign up for it, because it sometimes takes a couple of days after they sign up for them to actually be able to get in. And it has so many helpful things for onboarding that you want to make sure they do that first. And then we're watching this on, a lot of you are watching this on Facebook. A lot of people have their teams based on Facebook. So if that applies to you, the following will make a lot of sense. If you do this elsewhere, if you really have more of a hub on WhatsApp or something else, you can kind of use this information and convert it to something that would work for WhatsApp. But I always tell people before I add them to groups that I'm adding them to groups. So I have it written out in this document for my team where they can just copy and paste, like, these are the groups that exist. And then I let the sponsor decide which ones they deem most important. So for me, if I'm talking to my team member, I'm going to say, I am adding you to the Hive Collective. That's my team page. This is what it's about. This is what we use it for. I'm also going to add you to the Lemongrass Spa consultant community, and that's run by home office. And, it has like things I might link to in our group. So you want to be in it so you can see the posts that I'm linking. And, it's a great place to look for graphics on the fly and things like that. And then I'm adding you to Tara's Hearts of Gold because it's a very large forum. You have access to a lot of different people. So if you're looking to ask a question and get a lot of different opinions, that's a great place to go. I feel like doing that on the consultant community just clogs up that feed. And it gets a lot of people who are going to give wrong answers. I see wrong answers given all the time when people ask questions in there. I don't think it's a great place to ask questions. I think it's a great resource for a lot of reasons, but I think asking in Hearts of Gold is a better place to ask questions. There are a lot of experts and fewer people giving answers that they don't know the answers to. And then also it's a great place to sort of get to know the people around you, because a lot of times you make friends with people who aren't on your immediate team, and you could find somebody that ends up being a pace setter for a future incentive. Like, this is a community. It's a great way to get to know people without it being like the literal entire community of lemongrass consultants. And then I tell them, for the Hive Collective, please put your notifications on all or highlights. That's your choice. And then for lemongrass consultant community, I put it on no notifications or highlights, and sort of show them, if they don't know how to control that for any groups you add them to. Because I also let them know I have the Lemon Zesters community. That's my uplines group. And there's a graphics group maybe that someone might have. Like, we have a host help group through our team where you can put your hosts. There's so many different groups that exist, but I'm not going to throw you in them all right away. These are what they are. Let me know which ones you want to be a part of. And then I note, like, in my notes, I have a notebook where when I have someone new, all of my people are in here who do one-on-ones or who just joined, and I take notes. So I'll write in here, like, they joined these groups, they aren't ready for these groups. And then down the line, I can be like, hey, okay, now you're acclimated. Would you like to be added to the Lemon Zesters group, which is my uplines group? And it has some great guides that are really helpful for getting started, things like that. So it's your job to take notes. Don't expect that you can remember every single thing about every conversation or every teammate. The more teammates you have, the harder it is to keep track of who said what. So having a notebook, I highly recommend. You can do it digitally, by hand, whatever. And then I let them know I'm sending them a welcome email. And I send this welcome email to my entire organization. My org knows that. It basically just makes sure that they have the link to the Hive Drive, the Hive community group page. And then also I link a Google form. This I'm going to drop below. Please don't fill it out, but it's basically a welcome interview. And I do it for everyone in my org. If someone answers and they're not my sponsee, I just forward it to their sponsor. And the point of it is to learn a little bit more about them, learn a little bit more about their goals and their experience, and it's going to guide what is next in the process of onboarding. It just really asks a lot of questions all at once, so you can, hit the ground running together. I also let them know about anything that they might expect from other team members. So, Tara will send a team or organization email maybe twice a month, and my upline Jasmine sends 7 days of orientation texts, and we have Marla who sends a weekly email with different updates. So they know to expect it all, and I let them know, like, you don't need to pay attention to all of it right away, but it's there. um I don't want them to be overwhelmed and think you have to read every single piece of information that comes through. Like, in the beginning it's a lot, and I acknowledge that it's a lot and that it's okay for them to pick and choose what they want to pay attention to, and always ask me, like, is this important? Do I need to look at this right now? If they're feeling overwhelmed. And then the next part, which is like, it sounds really crazy. I get a lot of funny looks when I talk to people about this next step. But it's called a phone call. And I know that sounds super outdated and strange. And, it also could be a Zoom, which, I know Zooms are pretty played out at this point. I know that a phone call sounds like something from the dark ages. And when I first heard this suggestion from a business development person at my previous company, I was like, okay, this lady is out of touch. Like, it's been a while since she's been in the field. She's actually suggesting I make phone calls. And I kind of ignored it for a while. And then one day I was like, you know what? Like, my onboarding is pretty wishy-washy, and I'm not feeling like private messaging people is really giving me the connections that I need. Like, I don't know if they're even paying attention to these messages. They're responding, but I'm not feeling like we're getting a good conversation going because it's really stilted. I think they're maybe walking away or doing something else while they're talking to me. They're not focused on the things, the tasks that I'm giving them or the advice I'm giving when they ask questions and things like that. So I started doing phone calls. And I will tell you, it really made a huge difference in my retention and the success of the launches people had. And wildly, most people will agree to it, even though a lot of the people are younger than me. But I'm like, I used to do this. I used to make phone calls. um, I didn't have a cell phone until I was 21. I, had to make phone calls for everything. The internet really wasn't huge until I was like in my early 20s. I do know I have the skill. So I set up a time that we can talk on the phone or have a Zoom together so that we can talk for 30 to 60 minutes and talk through all the things that they talked about, all the questions that I asked, all the answers they gave on that welcome interview. Um, and really solidify, make sure these goals that they're setting are doable, talk through the amount of time that they said they could commit to the business versus how much money they want to make, and make sure those things line up. Essentially, like, Google SMART goals and look at what that means. You're looking at all the aspects of SMART goals to make sure that it's, measurable and attainable, and like that you'll be able to follow up on these goals to see if they're hitting them. And Jumpstart is right there for you for the taking. So that's a really good mile marker. And you'll see that it's in, like, I drop that right in the interview so they can look at it while they're making their goals. And just getting to know each other, because a lot of times for me, my recruits are people who I've worked with online but never actually spoken to. So they may be party guests or previous hosts or just like really good VIPs. Um, so this is an opportunity to actually speak in real life. Obviously, if you know each other in real life and you live in the same town, you don't need to do a phone call or Zoom. You can talk in real life. But, they say something like 90% of communication is taking place through body language and facial expressions. And when you're chatting through PM or text, you're not getting that. And you can't tell if something is making someone uncomfortable, like you're making a suggestion about something they could do and it's out of their comfort zone. But you can tell that in a conversation. You can tell if they're committing to something and they're probably not really going to do it by the way they're saying it and the way they look. So that's why, or the way they sound. So Zoom is great for that. Phone calls also a great option. You can ask questions and get immediate answers, or talk through if they don't have an answer. And you have them right there. Hopefully you can tell if they're watching TV at the same time. You don't want that. And if someone won't have a conversation, they'd rather have it through PM, that tells you something. It doesn't necessarily mean they're less committed, but it does give you some clues about availability and what level of support you're going to be able to offer them and how they prefer to learn. And you just have to use that as a tool to see what level of commitment they have. Okay, so for the first day, I'm only telling them about groups and sending them the email with that survey, and telling them that I'd like to speak in a couple of days and trying to get that on the schedule. Then I say, until then, until our meeting that we're scheduling, um, explore your VO, look through Lemongrass Central, look at the groups you choose to be part of. And grab a notebook or open notes on your phone or your computer, whatever, and start gathering questions. And as you're looking around, it's basically just explore. See what's there, poke around. There are video, and I tell them where videos are in Lemongrass Central. So if they want to start those, they can. I just want you to see what there is. And I want you to start gathering questions for me. And then when we meet and chat, I can just go through that list of questions you have. And along the way, you might find the answer yourself, which is like kind of what you eventually want them to be doing. So you can cross those off the list and stuff like that. So fill out the form, start looking around. So I'm very clear about what they are expected to do next and give them two things, not a whole bunch, just really direct and guide their attention. And then on day two, well, okay, and then I have my own homework on day one. I post a welcome in my main Facebook group so people know there's someone new there and sort of say a little bit about how we met and, what they're about and like, let people see their face. I put their face in a graphic. And then I start planning a welcome mail. And you can send a card if that's all you can afford, or you can send them team swag if you have that, or just like some samples to get started. If you're not sure exactly what they need yet, wait until your call and gauge more, or wait till you see their survey or have the call to see what they need. Maybe they are short on cash to start out with, and maybe they'll only have whatever's in their kit to begin. But they do have a bunch of people at work they want to talk to right away about this, or in their neighborhood. Send them samples if you have samples, if that's an option for you. Like, put in their hands things that they can use for whatever they plan on doing. And make sure you take into account your budget. Don't overspend if that's not something that you can do yet. And then on day two, I check in. I just say, hey, how are you feeling? Have you gotten a chance to look around? Asking questions so that they are compelled to respond. And then that's when I find out if they have gone to Lemongrass Central yet. If they have not, I give them direct links. And I have this in my little onboarding thing, so I don't have to go hunting for the links every time. Direct links to suggest that they start in the Launch Your Business trainings, under trainings in Lemongrass Central. And I say, it's ideal if you can do these in the first 15 days. There are fewer than 15, so it's like less than one a day. But if you have time, you don't have to watch them necessarily. You can listen to most of them. Some of them are visual guides through the back office. Obviously, it's handy to watch. But it's something, a lot of them you can listen to in the car while you're doing dishes, things like that. Like, this doesn't have to take up a bunch of time, but it is something that I think you should commit your time to during the first 15 days, because a lot of questions people ask are already answered there. It will save you time as their leader, and it will help them start to see what's there and use those resources. So that's their homework. And hopefully by day two or day three, you actually have their responses if they actually did do their homework for day one, and you can start looking through. Just read it through, start thinking about questions you have to elaborate on what they answered, and start taking notes if that's something you're doing. And so day three-ish, usually the call doesn't take place on the third day, but sometimes it does. And that's like ideal for me, but it could be, I try to make sure the call is within the first 10 days, because they just joined. You want to keep that momentum, and you want to get them started on their jump start and start planning their launch. So for me, 10 days, if they can't within the first 10 days meet with you to chat, even for 30 minutes to 60 minutes, that's also telling. Think about what that might mean and try to figure that out with that person. But I just chat with them. We talk about the questions they answered. I really focus in on the questions about how much time they can spend on their business. Look at the things I ask about their life. So you'll know if they have children or another job, or if they have support in their lives from like a spouse or something like that. You kind of get an idea of like, is the amount of time they're saying they have commensurate with what they're saying they have going on in their lives? And then is the goal that they set for their first jump start a reasonable goal? And then you start talking through, what they perceive their business being, whether it's online, in person, vendor events, a combination of those things, and then look at the goal and say, okay, let's break down this goal and figure out what steps you need to take so that by the time your deadline for this goal comes, you've been able to accomplish what you set out to do. If they have financial goals, making sure that it maths. They start out making 25% is the amount of work they're putting in, and the jumpstart goal. Sometimes people just don't think it through. Like, if you're going to sell $300, then you're going to make 25% of that. If you're saying your first jumpstart goal is $300, so that's in the course of 1 to 2 months, but your goal for making money is $1,000 a month, that doesn't math. So let's figure out if there's a compromise, or if we need to make a more reasonable understanding of what your financial, your earnings will be if you hit your jumpstart, things like that. Sometimes this is when I'm like, this is serving a couple purposes. You're talking through goals and you're getting to practice being a leader. You're doing what you will do in the future in one-on-ones if they want them. You're also just building a relationship. So they're getting to know you and you're finding out what they need from you. You can kind of gauge, you can ask them things like, what's your love language or your Enneagram? If they don't know, you could ask if they'd be wanting to take a test to learn more about these things, because it can help you support them. I have a question on the survey about what they need from me. Some people want someone to hold them accountable and come behind them and check in and make sure they're doing the things they said they do. Other people find that very overbearing. Some people want to hear what you're doing so they can decide if they want to apply that. Other people don't want you to tell them what you're doing because that's not what they want to do. And usually they've seen kind of what you do before they joined you. So this isn't about what you think they should be doing. This is about what they want for their business, what they need from you, and how you can provide that. And that might change over time, and that's fine. You can have ongoing conversations about that, but you want to really listen, because you don't want to chase them off by your being overbearing and overwhelming them. And you don't want to just leave them hanging if they want more handholding in the beginning. The goal is at the end of Jumpstart for them to fly free from the nest and need you maybe once or twice a month. You want to also, this sounds sort of, it's not, it doesn't sound rude, but you do have to also think about your time is money. As a leader, as a business owner, you are spending time onboarding your teammates. After the jumpstart period, if they still need you just as much as they needed you in the first 30, 60, 90 days, and they're not really working, they just have a lot of questions, but they don't enact the things you talk about, they don't follow through on their commitments, they make appointments with you and they don't show up, it is okay to pull back and say, this is my hourly wage in my mind, and they are taking up a ton of my time and I'm not making money. It is a business. It is about the relationships too. And if that doesn't matter to you, that's okay. But it's also okay to think about the energy you're putting in and what is coming out of it for you. Because if your majority of your money is coming from your own business and a small fraction of your money is coming from your team members, you need to think about your workload and where you're putting your energy if you also have financial goals and promotion goals in this business. It's okay to consider yourself while helping others. Just had to get that out there because I see a lot of people really struggle with that. It's good to be selfless, but it's also good to consider yourself, you know? In this conversation, we're also choosing a launch date. If they want to have an online launch or an in-home launch, you're figuring that out and you're helping them choose a date in this conversation. And then you're going to help them follow through with that. You're going to find out how much help they want. For some of my team members, I'm running their online party, but they get homework. They're doing all the things a host would do and a little more because they're learning how to do this. And we together are looking to book 2 to 3 parties from their party, because to do anything and to network, you have to have ways of engaging with other people. If it's not parties, it's one-on-one conversations they're planning to have with people, or vendor events that they're scheduling, or connections in the neighborhood, maybe realtors that would want some of their products. Like, the networking has to begin right away. So you're working on that during this process. Making sure they understand the jumpstart periods and how they work. Making sure that they understand that they can earn host rewards and know how to set up an event for their launch, and why one would want to do that, and why you want to train your customers to choose an event during checkout. And I usually set the goals for the launch party, like 300 or 500 stretch goals, and help them pick a goal for how many parties they want to book. I try to aim for 2 to 3 at minimum. And then I invite them to shadow. I let them come to one of my existing parties or look at one that just ended so they can just poke around, so they can see what it looks like. And the last thing we do in that time is, if we have time, or I make it their homework, start coming up with a list of people you know will support you, people you would love to see check this out, people that you really don't know if they will care about this venture, but that you, and that they're scared to talk to. Different tiers of people that they might start contacting with and networking with, people that maybe they know have a really big network and would be a really great connection to make so they can introduce you to people. You've heard of like Frank's List, Alice List. You can Google those if you don't know what they are. That kind of a thing, but we're not talking about cold messaging anyone. We're not talking about cold calling anyone. We're just talking about coming up with a list to work from, because we're building the beginnings of what will be their funnels, their lists of potential customers, hosts, and team members. Like, this is the very beginning of that. And then from there, you're following through on all the plans that you made. So you're making sure that, just as you want them to stick with it, to follow through on the things they said they're going to do for their onboarding, you need to do the same for them. You're showing them what kind of leader you are. You're showing them if they can trust you. You're showing them that your word matters, that your word is your bond, that you are going to have integrity with them. Because they're trusting you. Like, they could have picked anybody to join under and they picked you. So it goes two ways. So you're helping them set up if they want to do an online. For me, that's what it always is. If they want to do an online launch, make sure they know how to set up a group or set it up for them. This is going to become their customer group. You're going to convert it to that after their launch. So you want to do that. Let's see, kind of explain once again, you're going to play the role of the consultant. They're going to play the role of the host. So you're going to be giving them tasks to do along the way, and make sure they understand these are things you're going to be asking your host to do. And then on top of that, help encourage them to do some of their own unique posting, more than a host might do, possibly, in terms of sharing their favorites, talking about why they joined Lemongrass. These things are important. They need buy-in from the people who are coming, so you want to make sure they know what kinds of content they should be sharing, and that they know people they invite are going to see their post way more than yours. So the more posting they can do, the more they take over right out of the gate, the better, because they're going to get more visibility, which converts to potential customers, orders, things like that, potential parties. All the things you're looking for need to be, you have to have relationships built to achieve any of these goals. And let's see, make them an admin in their group. And then make sure, one of the most important things is when you're working with a host, so also when you're working with your new team members, talking about not mass adding, having personal conversations to invite people, maybe doing a post on their social media, on their public page, to announce what they're doing and let them know when they get their starter kit. Ideally, they'll do a live or record a video sharing what they've got, piquing interest so people can see what Lemongrass offers. You can chit chat a little bit about it. If they have never done such a thing, you can show them some examples, or just talk them through the steps. And if they want to practice, you can even set up a fake group, which just the two of you. They figure out how to go live. All the fumbling that can happen behind the scenes. And then they can do a practice run if they want to. They can practice on people at home, whatever makes them feel comfortable, going live or recording a video. And if neither of those things, if they really just don't want to do those things, help them take good pictures and make sure they're being descriptive when they share about what they like and things like that. Give them coaching on writing posts. And then after that, their launch begins. You kind of guide them through that. Don't leave them hanging. Check in every day. If you see things that they could do differently, being really conscious of how you give feedback, and, compliment sandwiches, what you're, which is, tell them something they're doing well, talk about something that maybe could be tweaked to be even better, and then something else they're doing well, so that it's easier to take the feedback. Or perhaps you learn during your one-on-one, their onboarding one-on-one, that they like to hear it straight. Then you can just be like, hey, so you did this post and it's really good, but you need to post a picture with every post, because otherwise it's not going to get seen. Or be a little more descriptive, like, add an ingredient to a review. Make sure that people know what it does, or add, this one has a great fragrance. Make sure you're describing the scent. And then, so that's onboarding. Really, that's the whole thing. Then you're helping guide them by month through their jumpstart, making sure you check in at the beginning of each month and say, okay, this is like the beginning of, this is the second part of your first jumpstart period. So these were your goals you set before. Is this still the goal you want to do? Do we need to change this goal? Can we increase it because you've already blown past it? Things like that. And guiding them through planning. Like, you can't just be like, okay, cool, you want 500? I'll check back. Like, what are they going to do to get the 500? What do they already have planned? What else do they need to get planned so that they can do that, and check in, if not daily, like they'll have told you kind of how often they want to be checked in with. Make sure they know your door is open and they can ask questions whenever. And if needed, set up another time to chat and have another face-to-face or voice call. Obviously, whatever kind of time you have available is relevant here. Maybe you can't do a bunch of calls or whatever, but make sure that you figure out between the two of you a way to continue to stay in contact through each jumpstart period and make sure they know what they're doing. And then obviously use your resources. If you're not sure, you want a sponsor to come on your first call with you and help you guide through that first one-on-one, I'm sure that there's someone above you that will help. If not, reach out side to side to people you see who are very helpful and see if they have the time. Don't demand time from people who are not in your upline or on your team, but there are tons of people who can help, and someone probably has the time when you have the time. So just figure out what kind of resources you have if you need more coaching for during your onboarding. The more you do it, the easier it gets. I would say after you've onboarded maybe 3 people, you will have a good idea of what you're doing. And again, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to say, oh, you just asked me a question during our phone call and I don't know the answer. This is a great opportunity to role model. I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know where I can figure that out, or I can find that out, and I'm going to ask and I'll come back to you. And then write it down. Make sure you actually do that. You don't have to be perfect. Done is better than perfect. Having these conversations instead of overthinking what the conversation is going to look like. Have the conversation, be yourself, be authentic. And this whole time you're showing them that they too could be a leader. Don't make it look hard, and don't make it hard on yourself. You want to show them how easy it can be, and show them that you don't have to know everything, and show them that they too could be a leader. They could bring someone on. I've seen people join and the same day they have their first teammate who also has someone join. So they're basically a lemongrass grandparent on day 1, and they're all learning together, and that's okay. You'll all figure it out together. You can lean on each other, and over time, you'll take on more of a leadership role. So yeah, that's it. That's onboarding. It sounds like a lot to start with, but just like you're telling your teammate to take it in bite-sized pieces, do the same. And if you take notes from this training or other trainings and start coming up with a checklist, break it into pieces by day. Like, on this day, I'm going to do this. These are my duties. This is what I'm going to ask them to do. And then have it written out so that when you get your teammate or your next teammate or your first teammate, you have something to look at and you're not feeling overwhelmed yourself, because people that can trickle down. If you're anxious and overwhelmed and all over the place, they're going to feel that, and it's transferable. So you want to sort of have a process, a structure in front of you that can change anytime, but something to go off of so that you're taking bite-sized pieces right alongside them.